Okay, welcome to the regular council meeting. The date is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. The time is 7 p.m. With that, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll move right to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor McLaughlin, second by Councillor Abbott. Any amendments, changes?
I do, Mayor Byrne.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
If I may recommend that item 10.1.1, 2026 budget, 2026 to 2030 5-year plan for adoption is deleted. And we can go through it one at a time or gather them up. What would you prefer, Mayor Byrne?
One at a time.
If I was to go on this one, I believe in this two pieces. One, the financial data for the year over year for the 26 to 30 data is not at hand. Secondly, I've spoken with the financial officer, and not for this meeting, but for the next meeting, he will provide the 2025 year to date in-house financial information in a fulsome and detailed category, which would assist us in the budget. And if there's going to be changes to the budget or questions asked about the budget, having the data in front of us would be the time to do that. So the recommendation again is that this item be deleted and come in.
Okay, we have a motion for that.
I did.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a little bit of background, just if council could remember that the 5-year financial plan must be adopted by May 14th.
There's a meeting on the 5th.
Okay, second, we have a second. Councillor Cunliffe, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed, motion carried.
My second item, which is very similar to that, is the following one, which is item 10.1.2. Tax rates 2026 tax rates be amended and given or amended from be given first, second, and third readings along the same lines that I just described with information coming. I would suggest in a way of moving forward, but not all the way, that we go from 1 to 3 readings to first and second readings. That will allow us, if there are no changes, to finalize the item at the next meeting.
Okay, motion to eliminate third reading.
I'll put that forward.
Second. All in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you, Mayor Byrne.
Any other items? Councillor Broughton.
Hey, I'd like to add item 10.3.2, which is just a motion indicate regarding the park opening, the date for the park opening. And also add item 10.3.3, which is a motion regarding watercraft storage. So I'd like to add those in those locations.
Okay, Councillor Broughton's moved that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cunliffe, second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Okay.
Just to repeat that, so it's park opening and
Watercraft storage.
watercraft storage.
Yeah, 2 items. They were, I have copies here, but they were on table items that were sent out earlier. 10.3.2 park opening, 10.3.3 watercraft storage.
Okay, any other? Yeah, Councillor Broughton.
Could I just take a moment personally? I'm wearing my Sunrun t-shirt this evening, not because I did particularly well on the Sunrun Sunday, but because there were 15 community members, family members, and others of the of David and Barbara Enns who attended the Sun Run in Barbara and David's honor. And I just wanted to make mention that the group honored Barbara and David's memory and tragic loss of Barbara and David on December 14th, 2024. And just very, very proud. I'll stand and show you my picture of Barbara and David on the back there. So.
Well, thank you very much for that that overview, and it sounds like it was a well attended and worthwhile cause. So
very much so.
Thank you again for representing the village. Okay, any other items that council would like to put forward? No. Okay. All in favor of the agenda as amended? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we'll move to public participation, and this is the 2 minutes per resident. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak? Great, just, please take the podium and state your name and.
Boulevard 235 Kelvin Road. I just want to get a quick clarification about last week's meeting. Now, full disclosure, I've always lobbied for a connection between Upper Kelvin Grove to the village. Ever since we lost the little girl crossing the road on Kelvin Grove back in the 1980s. And if you look back in your archives, you'll see my rants. But I've never lobbied for a road connection because of the unfair ramifications it would have on Panorama Place and the Kelvin Grove cul-de-sac. And like the last meeting was the first I had heard of this preliminary subdivision submittal for the old Ronsley property. And so I read the Land Title Act, Local Government Act, the 2A OCP, that I was involved in writing in the connection for a trail between Upper Kelvin and the village. And I think I have a decent grasp of the duties of the approving officer. I may be wrong, but I don't see anything preventing the approving officer from sharing information with council. I think that firewall is really only one way. And I don't think requesting information that can be classified as undue influence really by any stretch of the imagination. So at the end of the last meeting, when you guys were discussing this, the mayor said, and I want to read this so I get it exactly right. The mayor said, the subdivision application envisions a pathway that might be connecting two parts of the village. Is that correct? The CAO and approving officer said, not exactly, no. One of the conditions in the preliminary layout review letter is that there be a road dedication to contact both sides of the community, south to the north, as a condition of subdivision. And the mayor said, so this particular pathway is something that has been sought after for more than 40 years by the village. Very true. But it went from pathway to the approving officer say, not exactly, no, one of the conditions is there be a road dedication. I don't think this is, semantics. A road is not the same as a pathway, especially to the people at the end of Panorama Place in Upper Kelvin Grove. From the south, the only entrance possible would be the temporary access area that they're using to do the logging. And the only practical exit is Panorama Place. It's not going to be Ronsley's Drive where it currently is. So was that a misspoke, or did the preliminary layout review letter to the developer say you have to build a road connecting the two places? Or did it say pathway? Because you said road.
Mr. Blackwell, do you want to answer that, or would you like to take time to think about it, or what? Just for point of clarification, we normally go 2 minutes. We're at about 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry, my
No,
fault.
no, that's fine. That's important. Mr. Blackwell, do you want to provide any clarity or some feedback or something, just because the community's here and sure be interested?
So let me just start. So best place to talk about this is not in the council chamber. It's in my office or, at the cul-de-sac section or wherever.
Excuse me, would you mind to speak a little bit louder, Mr. Blackwell, please?
Sorry, it's as loud as I go.
Louder, sorry, because I can't hear you. Sorry about that.
The best place is not here, where the conversation can be a lot longer and more detailed. So, so with regard to the question, one of the conditions in the PLR is for a road dedication. That's not the same thing as building a road. It's a line on a map that says this area shown in the line on the map is a road dedication. So whether or not that ever gets built as a road is contingent upon a whole pile of things. Whether it's with regard to a road dedication, It's not exclusive to a road. You can build a trail in a road dedication, like you have sidewalks within a road dedication. So it's not mutually exclusive. So it may be that the municipality never has the money to engineer and design a road, but that through the subdivision, a road dedication would allow that in the future if the cards ever aligned, if it ever made sense to do that. It would also provide an opportunity to construct a trail within that road dedication if council of the day decided to invest in the money to engineer it and all the rest of that. So it doesn't, one does not preclude the other, but it's certainly not road construction.
Okay, good answer, appreciate it. Would, it set anyone's hair on fire, or people would stop if you just said trail? Could you say trail instead?
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell.
Can't,
No.
technically, it's a road dedication. What happens in that road dedication is a bit more fluid. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily, it can't be can't
So a
go
road
around.
dedication is just a line on the map, it's not anything else.
No, in this case, it's not. In other circumstances, one of the conditions could be road dedication. And a developer, depending on the scenario, has to actually build a road. Or it's, in some cases, it's only half the road. In this case, it's no building of any
No
road,
building of
it's
that,
just
right.
dedicating that section of land to provide for a future road if it was ever deemed something that the community wanted to do.
On a practical basis, how practical would it be to actually build a road? Some people would think that a road actually,
The short, so the short answer is absolutely can build a road there, no trouble at all. But that's not the same question as, would it be cheap to build a road there? So that would be an extremely expensive road to build.
And I don't, when you say can you fit I think the minimum is 6.2 meters up to Panorama Place, like, that's a pretty tight in there. But, okay, can you say they have to put in a trail?
Mr. Blackwell.
That would be great.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. That would be sort of, that ship has sailed with regard to a preliminary layout review. If I were gonna ask for construction of a trail, it'd be, the first step would be asking for a road. We're not asking for a road construction, so we can't ask for a trail. The actual trail construction is something that the municipality would have.
I'd like to have this discussion because I don't know why the two would be mutually exclusive. If you can put in dedication for a road, then why can't you say, if you're gonna develop this and get it subdivided into 3 lots, you're gonna put in a trail that people can use?
What I would suggest is feel free to give me a ring, and I can either meet you up there or pop in my office or talk on the phone. And I'd be happy to sort of delve into some of these nuances with you.
No problem.
All right, yeah.
The road dedication, is that, who owns that property? Is that dedicated to the village or is that?
Easily.
Mr. Blackwell.
That would be part of the municipal road network.
So the village would.
Thank you very much. This was an important matter, so we've gone well over the 2 minutes, but is there anybody else in the gallery?
It's 10 minutes, yes, but.
Yes, we're gonna come to you in a moment.
All right. thank you.
Anyone online that would like to speak?
No.
Okay, someone in the gallery, please go to the podium. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vince Reich. I live in 110 Colwyn Grove. I just feel like there's been there has not been very much transparency as to what's going on in the cul-de-sac at Colwyn Grove. We see a lot of heavy earth movement equipment. We see a lot of logging being done there. And it's just, there's no communication. Like, I don't know what's going on there. I don't think any of these people know what's going on there. So I think we need someone to tell us what's happening. I don't know what that mechanism is, and I would expect council could help us understand what's going on there.
I'll pass it over to Mr. Blackwell, but this process is strictly with staff, and in fact, council is not permitted to interfere in this process. But you're being heard. It sounds like communication needs to be a little bit more forthcoming. But Mr. Blackwell, can you give us just an overview on how the local residents might be able to learn more about this and we resolve people being feeling like they're not being heard?
Sure, well, there's no process to be heard in this, simply is the case. If somebody wants to undertake work on their property, they can choose to let their neighbors know or not. This individual is undertaking tree cutting, etc. I don't imagine anybody else in the village notifies the rest of the village anytime they do landscaping work, so there's no legislative requirement. In fact, local governments would not be permitted to require that. So, the simple answer is, if you're wondering what your neighbor's doing, knock on their door. There are other processes that provide for statutory engagement. OCP amendments, zoning bylaw amendments and so forth, with exceptions. There's statutory requirements for public engagement, for signage, etc. So for things like development variance permits, there's a requirement for signage to notify the community, and that the local governments are afforded that authorization to require those things. Not all local governments take advantage of that, however, don't include that in their bylaws. This one has. So if there was a development variance permit, people have to put signs up. If it was a rezoning scenario, depending on the situation, there'd be signs, there'd be notification to adjacent property owners with letters. By the way, so too with development variance permits, letters to adjacent neighbors. And so forth. But for the work that's being discussed here, the only involvement the municipality has is with respect to and limited to a temporary driveway access, so that they can access the site and do whatever landscaping work they are doing, which again is not regulated.
In terms of any sort of public safety risks, in terms of removing all those trees and potentially setting up another landslide event, like where does that risk lie and who's responsible for that risk?
That's Blackwell.
That's solely with the property owner.
So if there's, heaven forbid, another landslide there, he will be on the hook for that.
You bet.
Yeah,
Has he done right geotechnical investigations? Has the council looked at those investigations?
He's not involved in anything that requires any permitting or no processes. It's the same, as I say, the best example is if I wanted to take out a bunch of landscaping and replace it with something else. If that fails, for whatever, let's say it's a retaining wall or something, and it happens, them doing work to fail, and it falls onto my neighbor's property, I'm on the hook. It's a civil matter, and so that's the same with this situation. So far as this person is just doing sort of landscape maintenance or
Use
whatever.
that term very loosely, landscaping. I think this is
Yeah.
way more than landscaping, let's be honest. I mean, they've removed a lot of trees.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to wrap up. So any further comments? Councillor Abbott, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to, without overstepping any boundaries and understanding what we can and cannot weigh in on. There is a parallel process at the moment. There's a proposal to change the zoning bylaw. What we've been told is going to happen on this property needs that to happen. That will become, public engagement will be in place for that. It's had 3 readings, I think, if I remember correctly. It needs to have the public engagement. So at that time, there is time to discuss these kind of matters and come to council. And the current situation for what we believe, people have been told verbally is planned, the resident plans cannot happen until that process happens. So there is a chance to be heard.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming forward. We'll go right to the delegation then. Would you like to take the podium?
thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Ben Perry. Good evening, Mr. Rose Blackwell, CEO, and good evening, all councillors and the guests as well. My name is Anna Bartolomeo. I'm the resident of the Lions Bay. I'm sorry. No, I have. Oh, that's how lovely you here, but I do have some water. If you don't mind, that's very kind. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Anna Bartolomeo. I have been a resident of Lions Bay for 34 years. And I would like to say I'm of Polish origin, and probably not very many people know me, and I don't know here everyone because I'm not coming so often to the meetings. And I like to say that I am a journalist and author, work with Polish publishing houses, with the Polish newspaper, with the Polish television and radio in London, England, Montreal, Ottawa, Vancouver, and Montreal, Ottawa, Vancouver. Before retirement, I worked on Parliament Hill as a speechwriter for Canadian Senator for the period of 10 years. That's very small things what I like to say about myself, who I am, because I never actually was here. My pen name is Anna Lubitsch-Luba. If somebody would like to read anything, that's different name than Bartholomew. Today, however, I'm here as a concerned resident to raise serious and urgent matters regarding the recent and ongoing activities related to the proposed subdivision of the property of 250 Ocean View Road owned by Mr. Szczecki. The matter of the subdivision and the danger of landslide is overwhelming. I decided to concentrate today only on these issues. First of all, I would like to also come back to this comments what Vince did means I was not informed by the property owner, Mr. Szczecki, about the proposal of subdivision, despite the expectations under section 73 of the land title RSBC 1996 C 250 and relevant village bylaws. It is widely recognized that adjacent property owners should be informed of significant subdivisions project, particularly where impacts may affect neighboring properties. That's quite obvious. Additionally, I have received no communication from the village of Lions Bay, which raises concern regarding compliance with the Local Government Act RSBC 215 C1. Municipality's duty is to ensure transparency and public awareness. A serious risk of landslide and slope instability is the most critical concern and is the significant risk of landslide and slope instability. The property at 250 Ocean View Road now resembles devastated forest due to extensive and aggressive tree clearings. Tree estimated to be 150 to 100 years old have been removed. Beautiful trees. It's so sad. I observed this work since March 14, and I have seen a lot of trees already on the ground. The work is still going on. Unfortunately, I'm extremely upset as well that the nesting season is nearly in the peak, and the little birdies could be not only on the trees, but on the ground as well. And I can't believe that any survey, any division of people could define that there is no any damage to nesting. It's impossible. On the property of 2 acres, nobody can look at every tree on every small piece of ground to see the bird. In general, you can say, yes, okay, we're okay with this. Several people can walk on the ground and say, okay, I think this is the violation of the law. That's my perception. Today, over 100 trees have been cut already, with plants removed up to approximately 150. That's what I heard could be. And this level of clearing on the steep slope poses a serious and potentially catastrophic risk to surrounding properties and to the village of Lions Bay. Scientific evidence supporting the risk is all the points which I present today are supported by municipal bylaw, provincial legislation, well-established scientific research, well-known authorities on landslide as Professor Scott McDougall from UBC, he said in 2022, he warned Lions Bay Council that climate change brings more rapid landslides Whenever the development occurs on sufficiently steep ground, there is a great risk to human life and property. His research confirmed that tree removal increases landslide risk due to loss of the soil cohesion, the roots stabilize the soil, increased water infiltration and soil saturation, long-term weakening as root decay over 5 to 8 years. And this is the most dangerous as well, because the mitigation is absolutely present, and after 5-8 years, the slope can cave in. The need for, he absolutely advocated for careful slope stability assessment prior to clearing, is very strongly advocated by other scientists as well, because of the issue of mitigation. Another man, Professor Brentwood from Simon Fraser University, following the 2024 Lions Bay landslide, indicated that landslide started in the spot in extenso, that's the in quote, let's say other way. The landslide started in the spot where trees had been cleared by developer. This reinforces the direct and serious risk associated with uncontrolled tree clearing. Professor Ward came immediately after the incident happened, and he saw this from firsthand. Professor, another one, Professor Yun Aliyah from UBC, Department of Forestry and Environmental Stewardship, has emphasized the importance of placing moratorium on logging on steep terrain, how dangerous it is. Peter Wood, a conservation and forestry expert, has warned that the removal of the road construction on slopes significantly increase the frequency and severity of landslides, with root strengths declining rapidly after harvest. Slopes can become unstable. A decade of tree deaths. That's very strong and very powerful, dangerous points, which I'm making from all the scientific studies and talking to different scientists on this subject. In the middle of March, I sent 3 letters to municipality, exactly to Director of Operation, Mr. Eric Villeneuve, and talked to him at my residence, giving him a lot of warnings regarding subdivision and worries about the safety, about the neighborhood. Mr. Villeneuve, in the letter dated March 19, told me that Mr. Szecki received PLR, which means preliminary layout review, as soon as temporary driveway access will be also given to him. It was the access from the public roadway, which allowed him to build the temporary gravel road so close to my driveway. Very soon, Mr. Szecki cut large trees very close to my driveway, very close on the borderline, removed vegetation along the shared boundary. Without any calling, any informing me, he did the cutting, and he plans to do more. Unfortunately, he removed the roots by excavator as well. I actually have a lot of photographs, which I, in meanwhile, can share. Okay, here. Yes, please. This is sorry. Yeah, please. If you can pass. Thank you. Here, as I said, very soon Mr. Szecki cut large trees very close to my driveway and removed vegetation along our shared boundary. Unfortunately, he removed the roots, and the photographs are showing that he took the roots with the excavator, exactly, leaving nothing. The roots are natural anchors. They hold soil in place, preventing slides. It is evident that the root system of these trees extended beneath my driveway, raising serious concern about structural stability and safety. There are also indications that further clearing is planned along lower part of my driveway near my home, which increased my concern for personal and property damage. I find also the conflict here between environmental protection principles. The massive clearing appears inconsistent with Lions Bay bylaw number 393/2207, which emphasizes environmental protection and preservation, so-called Lions Bay Parkland, which could give enjoyment for the future generation. Doesn't look like parkland anymore if we have few more people like this.
Ms.
Mr.
Bartholomew, we've
Sorry.
run up to the 10 minutes. If you could, please wrap up. We'll give you
Okay,
another
okay,
minute or
okay,
two.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, from the letter from Mr. Villeneuve, I got information that everything is private, such private matter in nature, because if any damage occurs, then it's between the neighbors. However, the scientific evidence clearly demonstrates large-scale tree removal on steep slopes are absolutely not private matter. It creates very high public safety risk. Immediate erosion, long-term slope destabilization, increased risk of catastrophic lifestyle. The same thing quickly about heavy machinery. The heavy machinery on this slope is an absolute killer for the soil and the drainage system. I hope that Mr. Szczecki is not going to use any heavy machinery on the slope. Instead, he can cut the trees in small pieces to save the slope. In summary, just finishing, in summary, the current subdivision activity combined with extensive tree removal and planned road construction poses serious foreseeable risk of landslide with potential consequences including loss of life and property. Last two paragraphs, the tragic landslide in December 2024 that claimed the long-time residents, beautiful couple, Barbara and David Ends, is just the red light should be for the municipality. How important is the issue? And on this level, how urgent is this issue? I certainly hope that this presentation, supported by credible scientific evidence, prompt the municipality to take immediate and responsible action. If no action is taken, I am prepared to escalate this matter to provincial and federal authority in order to ensure that the risks to the community are fully understood and taken care of. I repeat again, public safety in Lions Bay should be prime responsibility and obligation by municipality.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone online? We neglected to go online. Okay. Thank you very much for all the input and for the public participation. We appreciate that. You can go to the village office and speak directly with our staff if you've got any further questions. So I would encourage.
Sorry, could you say again? Because
I said you could go to the village office and speak
Yeah.
directly with our staff if you have any further questions.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation.
thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move to item number 7, the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve April 7th, 2026 minutes? Moved by Councillor McLaughlin, second. Do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Broughton. Any amendments, changes to those minutes?
No.
No, okay, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Okay, business rising from minutes, any business rising, any of the councillors? No? Okay, we'll
Yes.
move to,
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
Councillor Broughton.
Yes, I had put forward an on-table item which I distributed by email earlier on and asked that it, and would like to just do an amendment to the fees bylaw. I think probably the best thing, if I could just quickly read this recommendation, I think it may really facilitate
Another,
save
okay,
it
with
one
that,
time forward.
another on table item.
Would that,
Yeah,
fit,
the on-table item, which is what, it's actually an item that was mentioned, is actually business arising
okay,
from the minutes.
is on table
It's
Yeah.
business arising from the minutes, right?
Okay, Councilor McLaughlin,
Sure.
business arising, please explain to us what the business arising is.
What part of the minutes, Michael?
Okay, regarding the,
Michael, business
the
arising.
fee schedule,
From
the
which-
amendment to the fee bylaw. I'm recommending that, if I could just quickly read it, I think it'll save a lot more time than discussing what we're
Okay,
talking
move
about.
through it quickly, please.
Sure. Council authorized the fees bylaw investigation and review, which would include a working group to look specifically at facility rentals. A cursory review of the bylaw, which with a focus on facility rentals, indicates that staff twice provided suggested changes and diligently sought to meet all community needs. Excuse me. Residents appear to generally be satisfied with the changes reflected in the bylaw, with one area of concern. My original recommendation of forming a review group was not only to ensure a fair fee structure, but also to review what resources were available for community use and how residents can be encouraged to take full advantage of village assets to support, the concept of a complete community, providing activities for all ages and interests, and supporting aging in place. With the implementation of an OCP review, this may be part of that discussion. So the suggestion that I'm making is that resident volunteer organized activities which are open to all residents and thus provide a service to the community should be encouraged by council. Residents have already contributed to the cost of operation of the facilities, and this should be reflected. So while grant and innate applications deal with many of these concerns, many activities are more spontaneous and responsive to current interests, and therefore special consideration should be given. Council is therefore asked to request staff prepare an amendment to bylaw 656 to include a daily rate of $25 per day for volunteer-led community events open to all. So my motion that I'm making is that staff prepare an amendment to bylaw 656 to include a daily rate of $25 per day for volunteer-led community activities in village facilities open to all. And that we not pursue a committee to review this matter, that at this point we have a huge amount of work need to be done by the community.
Okay,
And so I attempted, so that is
do
my.
we have a seconder? Okay, moved by, or seconded by Councilor Cunliffe, discussion. Mr. Blackwell has his hand up, so we'll go to Mr. Blackwell and then we'll go around the table.
Just some comments to help round out your conversation that you're about to have. The reason for the fees as they were is because there needs to be an amount set aside to pay for the damage that happens in the facility. The last bill was in the several $1,000 range. And even the rental fees that have been proposed won't cover all that off. But it is to ensure that there's some buffer there to deal with the damage by the specific user groups, whether they be birthday parties, etc. There's always damage, there's cleaning, there's issues with stuff that gets stuck on glass that's hard to get off. That's what the money is for. So if council is so inclined to reduce it to $25,
For specific.
my recommendation would be that there's no point in charging $25. Just pull the Band-Aid off and make it free. $25, it would be more inconvenient. It costs more to administrative time than the $25. In other words, it would cost $50 of staff time to charge $25. So my recommendation would be make it free or make the user pay in such a way as to help defray some of the costs. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, Councilor and Councilor Abbott.
Yeah, I appreciate this coming forward. I think when we discussed this the first time, I had the same suggestion. So the $25 rate has been what's traditionally been charged to specific user groups. Now, we haven't defined them here. I don't believe we need to define them. I think staff know who they are. And it's volunteer organizations And as long as the event is open to all residents. It's always been clearly understood who complies and who doesn't. It's not for, and I don't believe any of those events have caused any damage, certainly none in my knowledge. When I go to those events, the hall is left cleaner when they leave than when they arrive. I witness every single time, they clean up, they mop the floors, in every event that I go to at least. Birthday parties and other sort of events that don't have that official community group where you know who you can go speak to about an issue. Damage deposits, that's what those are for, and that's the way it should be managed. And I'll remind residents, remind everyone that in Anmore, for example, we like to compare ourselves to similar communities. For these kind of groups, it is actually free. They don't charge $25.
Okay, any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor McLaughlin?
I'm glad after 4.5 months, we have a resolve to the simple question.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I think that we should remove the $25 fee. Maybe could we rescind that motion and put forward?
I presumed that Mr. Brown is not even said that, that was a zero.
It's
Zero,
actually not, but,
because it makes perfect sense to me that it's costing
That's
us
black
more to collect $25 than it is to just.
I'll second that friendly.
How do we go about rescinding that?
You don't need to, you just make a new.
Okay, new amendment,
I'll put that forward.
Fair enough.
Zero.
okay,
Yeah.
moved, seconded, all in favor?
Yes,
Opposed, motion carried.
perfect,
Thank you. Okay, any other items in finished business? Okay, next item is 9.1, and that is the motion that the alternative means of publication bylaw number 648/2026 be adopted. Do we have a motion for that? Moved by Councillor McLaughlin and second by Councillor Abbott. Any comments or we call the question? Councillor McLaughlin?
Move to the motions.
Okay, all in favor?
yes.
Opposed, motion carried.
If I may, the chair, really quickly on this note. Just a reminder that our current regular posting places are the bulletin board out front of the village office and the post office room. For about the last 2 months, this is just something I'd like to bring to council's attention. The agenda that I post every week seems to be taken down. So last week, I put a sign asking that it not be removed. And this doesn't seem to happen to committee agendas, just regular council meetings. And even after I posted a sign that copies are available for anyone that would like a hard copy, they can come to the office anytime and pick one up. We're happy to print that off. It was still once again missing. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we are required to post the agendas in these places. That's very important that we do so. So
Okay. All right, if any residents need an agenda, they can go to the office and ask Crystal or one of the other staff. We'd appreciate you leaving the posting up.
One suggestion, could we not leave 10 or 15 out there and see what happens? Wouldn't be-
Sure.
There's a little box where you can leave things in, just leave some there.
Okay, we're gonna move to 9.2. The motion is that the bylaw enforcement notice number 385/2006 amendment bylaw 640/2026 be adopted. Do we have a motion for that? Moved by Councillor McLaughlin, second by Councillor Abbott. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. We have item 9.3, Kelvin Grove temporary access permit. Discussion on temporary access permit and Kelvin Grove and subdivision application. And Mr. Blackwell, before you run off on us, I'm sure there'll be some interest in this, so can you please give us an overview? It's we've got it for discussion.
Thank you. Yes, I would ask our Director of Operations to weigh on,
I can't hear anything. I come closer because I can't hear you, sorry about that.
Eric, would you mind coming up to the table, please, if you would?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Evening, council.
Welcome. We do that intentionally. We give you that chair that's the lower.
Keeps it short. Figuratively speaking.
Okay, perhaps you can give us, well, Mr. Blackwell, you and Eric can give an overview on this.
Yeah, so this was to provide council with I think, memory serves me correctly now. An update or a sort of an overview is the word I'm looking for with regard to the temporary application. But generally how the application and the permitting process for temporary driveway accesses happen, how they're handled, and what is sort of considerations that go into a staff decision on this, security that's provided for damage and so forth. So it was meant to be a bit of an overview for council's information. Are you able to walk them through what you do when you review?
Sure, thanks, Mr. Blackwell. Through the chair, when an application is received, staff review it for compliance with our driveway crossing bylaw. And if everything is satisfactory, we receive a damage deposit of $5,000 for our bylaw. And that's to ensure we have funds in case there's any damage to municipal property. Then we have something to hold them to account and or pay for any damage ourselves if the applicant isn't fixing things on village property. In this case, there was a couple extra conditions that we added in terms of traffic control. This was a temporary permit, so it was valid until the end of April. And upon permit expiry, in this case, removal of the temporary access is required. And it must be constructed in strict conformance with the accepted drawings.
Okay, council, any questions? For Eric, Councilor Cullen?
I guess the question would be, so the permit applicant is compelled to remove on May 1st, essentially, or April 30th, and if they did not do so, what would be the process? Would the village then restore the access back to its natural state and use the $5,000 to offset the cost of doing it?
Through the chair, that's correct. This particular permit is valid until April 30th. However, the applicant has an opportunity to extend it for an additional month if they provide 1 week notice, which will be in a couple days, the expiry. The 23rd, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
And that's correct. The second question, if removal or any conditions of the permit are not satisfied, we have, the village has $5,000 to complete the removal in that example at their expense, in which case we would deduct the cost of the removal from that damage deposit amount.
Okay, any other questions, councillors? Councillor Abbott?
9.3, and if there was a report, it would be preferable. We would have known what to expect, but it says discussion on temporary access permit in Kelvin Grove and subdivision application. What about the second part of the question? Is that for discussion tonight?
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell?
So the goal was to break this into two, because they're two totally separate things. Council has heard me already preempt that by my earlier comments. But if you would like, I can run you through the subdivision application process, if that's what.
Please do.
Okay, so subdivision is a mechanism of, I'll go right back to the beginning of time. It's a process that's set out in Part 14 Powers of the Local Government Act. It's also set out under the provisions of the Land Title Act, and there are some other peripheral pieces of legislation that sort of factor in. Those are the primary considerations. So to be able to subdivide, property owner has to do their due diligence with regard to assessing what can be achieved relative to the zoning and the minimum lot size a zoning bylaw prescribes. So if a property owner has a 1 acre property, for example, and the minimum lot size for their zone is 1.5 acres, they can't subdivide. But if And another example, if their property is 1 acre and the minimum lot size is 0.25 of an acre, they can get 4 lots in there. In theory, and I'll talk more about what the in theory caveat means. So step one is making sure that you're able to physically facilitate that vis-a-vis the zoning. Now, if you can't, the options are potentially to look at rezoning your property to a zone that would allow subdivision. That may or may not be possible. I'm speaking in general terms here, by the way. I'm not speaking about this property, I'm just talking about how the process works. So that may or may not be possible. There aren't really very many, only one single family residential zone here. In other bigger communities, there's typically a fair number of single family residential zones. Each zone has its sort of a different expression of the regulations. So some single family residential zones, for example, might be called sort of a more of a state size. So they might be minimum lot size of 2 acres. Other ones are more urban single family residential. Might be a 0.3 of an acre as a contrast. And there's a whole bunch of other moving pieces. We don't have that in Lions Bay, as you know, we just have one. So person wants to subdivide, they have to look at the zoning bylaw to see if they can actually do that relative to the minimum lot sizes. Then if we feel that's something that they can go forward with, there is the subdivision process that sets out the subdivision application process. Now that process is defined by legislation, says who does what, when, how, and where, the authorities granted to whom. And with regard to subdivision, the authorities are quite exclusive to a subdivision approving officer, which really functions as an extension of the province because they're insulated and isolated from the rest of the decision-making regime of a council. It's a bit of an odd outlier. It's only that and building permit applications that are sort of totally shielded from the council process. I get the building piece, but I find the subdivision is a bit odd that there's no ability for anyone to weigh in on it. There's no requirements for notification, et cetera, et cetera. It just basically says, if you're zoned for it, all of the public engagement was done at the zoning stage. Everyone had their chance to put their input in at the zoning bylaw stage. So that infers the opportunity to subdivide at some point after that. So we have the subdivision application process, person fills it out, they submit it, it's reviewed, in this case by me, because I'm also the subdivision approving officer, which is not usually the role of a CAO, it's usually the role of an engineer, like the director of operations. But in my case, it's me, hooray, excuse me. And the application is reviewed. And then what's referred to here as a preliminary layout review letter. It goes on by various names, but we call it a preliminary layout review letter is prepared and it doesn't approve anything. It used to be called, as an interesting little factoid, a PLA, preliminary layout approval. That was challenged legally. And the court sort of said, well, the word approval at the end conveys certain sort of expectations, so we can't sort of pull back on that. So since those court rulings, local government has changed the name from PLA to PLR and various other iterations. So there's no approval associated with it anymore. It's just a review. And that letter sets out a series of requirements associated with subdivision. So those are things like, this is not exhaustive because I can't remember, they're typically in the order of 2 to 3 pages long of conditions. There are things like you have to meet zoning, you have to be able to, you have to connect to municipal water, you have to connect to municipal sewer, if there isn't sewer, you have to demonstrate that you have a septic field and you have room for backup. You have to get approval from all the utilities like TELUS and whoever else might be involved, maybe Fortis, whatever the utility providers are for the given community. You have to demonstrate that there's a viable building envelope. structurally as well as geotechnically. You may be required to, do, frontage improvements, so in some cases, it can include a situation where the applicant has to construct curb gutter, catch basins, streetlights. It could be fire hydrant installation, there's a whole range. And the range of these things that are required associated with subdivision are set out in another bylaw called the subdivision servicing bylaw that gives the authority for local government to ask for all this stuff. We have a new one now, thankfully. We had ours prior to recently was 1 page long. We're now well served with a multi-page document. That subdivision servicing bylaw references engineering standards such as the MMCD standards associated with storm connections and all of this technical stuff. All of these requirements are set out in this as requirements for subdivision in the PLR. Now, as a person goes through all of these conditions, they sort of check them off. Oh yeah, that's achievable. This is achievable, and maybe one of them they'll eventually get to. They just can't solve. For instance, maybe they can't. Let's say there's not sufficient water supply to the property. Well, that's going to be an impediment. If they can't find an engineered solution to compensate for that lack of water, they can't proceed any further. If they can't demonstrate that they can identify, and these, by the way, have to be shown on the survey plan, viable building envelopes for each proposed lot. We can't show that. It's another reason why they can't proceed. There's a whole series of hurdles that an applicant has to get across in order to be able to continue on with their subdivision. But if they are able to do that, they submit their package for review. Staff will review that. Sometimes the applicant will have addressed all the issues or requirements perfectly. In other situations, one or two or more might require sort of more specialized alternative solutions that are prepared and provided by their consulting engineer. Municipality's engineer will review those and assess those, see if they're going to be adequate. Once all that's done, if all the lights are still green, then it moves forward to the next stage, which is doing all the servicing requirements, which is all the sewage connections, water connections that are stepped off at the property.
Questions and all?
Yeah, you said you guys wanted the full, so you.
Yeah,
The full meal
we
deal.
appreciate that. Okay, I'm gonna go to the counselors for questions. Counselor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Murray. Mr. Blackwell. You mentioned the application process in great deal and the boxes that need to be ticked. Using this potential subdivision that's in question here, there's a stream running through it. And given the top to bottom site, other entities are involved, I presume. If you could confirm that the fisheries motions because of the stream, MOTC, the bottom of the hill. I don't know whether the rail line's involved, it's too close, too far. And I don't know about other government bodies that I just don't know about. Do they come into this at all?
The Blackwell.
Thank you. So it depends. So with regard to streams through a property, that's not the same thing as development of a property. Subdividing a property is, you could have a stream, the whole property could be a stream, it doesn't matter. It's a totally different thing if we're talking about building on a property. Then there are the RER regulations, riparian area regulations that kick in, but we're not talking about building here. We're talking about a subdivision, creation of lines on a map. So the creation, with regard to the creation of lines on a map, no, those things are not required. To build, however, so if where I was going with this, if after, and I'll jump ahead, if this is all the conditions are met, the subdivision plans are signed off, they're submitted to the LTO, land title office, they're registered. Once that's done, then the property owner, whoever it might be, is free to then, if they so choose, build on that property in accordance with, zoning bylaw. And through the building permit process, which might, in Lions Bay, require another go-round with regard to things like geotechnical considerations. Which is our standard, which we do for every building permit application. So, with that process, there are these other considerations like setbacks from creeks and so forth. The geotechnical engineers have to confirm this, that, the next thing. The structural engineers have to confirm this, that, the next thing. It's quite a rigorous process.
Any other questions?
Can I have one?
No, sorry.
No, there is no chance, no? For later when you finish, just put one major question. That's what I-
Okay, normally what we do is we do our questions delegation at the beginning, then we have questions at the end. In this case, I know this is quite, I know
I'm
this
not
is,
familiar, thank you.
okay.
You can speak at the end again.
Yeah, you can speak at the end again.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Any counselors wish to weigh in?
Yeah.
Counselor Abbott?
So in the last meeting, I asked some questions that, Ross, you're quite adamant you could not and would not answer. Don't want to necessarily repeat that, but I just want to kind of understand, what we can and can't know. So the PLR, that has been submitted is not open to council's review, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in any of these, if our subdivision, if our zoning bylaw allowed, and we currently there's another step to be done before that can, but if our zoning bylaw allowed for whatever's in this PLR, we don't know, we can't see, we don't know how many lots, we don't know what it says. But if our zoning bylaw allowed it, then you would just approve it as the approving officer. So council will get no visibility, potentially get no visibility on this entire process, with the exception of if there's a required change to the zoning bylaw or any of the other bylaws. Is that correct?
Mr. Blackwell, can you give us a reasoning behind your answer, which I expect? I know the answer, but just give us detail.
Yeah, I'll try. Ask me if you pick me back up on that if I miss.
There's a reason why council isn't allowed to weigh in according to the legislation, because my understanding is you can't weigh in positively or negatively. It's a prescriptive type of process, but
So, yeah,
I really need a yes or no, that's all, to be honest.
So to answer your question, what is not permissible is any influence of the approving officer through the subdivision process. Back to Councillor Abbott's question. The zoning, the OCP process, which sets land use designations out, has a whole public consultation process where people express their views on things like density and so forth. The next step in that, or the next, what am I trying to say here? Word noun retrieval. The next iteration of that is the subdivision bylaw, and there's also an opportunity for the public to weigh in on the zoning bylaw, and through that public consultation.
So you said subdivision bylaw, you mean zoning bylaw?
Sorry, yeah,
We don't have a
thank you.
subdivision.
No, thank you for that.
Okay.
The zoning bylaw, and through that process, as I say, the public are given another opportunity to weigh in on the issues that they feel concern them. So through those processes, it gives an authorization then, it's a sort of a tacit authorization that if the community's gone through all these engagement exercises, it's created all of these zones through that process, and it confers the authority to now exercise the opportunities that any given zone provides. So because of that process, the subdivision application process is just an extension, a manifestation of the authorities granted through the subdivision, the zoning bylaw. That makes sense. I'll say that again. The subdivision process just is a manifestation, it actions or gives effect to the authorities that are established through the public participation process that created the zoning bylaw. So the province in its wisdom felt that it would be, I shouldn't speak for the province, my assumption is that they felt that at some point there's enough consultation. That if the public has said zone X permits lots of this size is okay, and it's received 4 readings adopted, then when a person goes ahead and acts upon that, then they don't have to go and ask for that duplicated process.
Okay, any other questions by councilors before we move on? No? Okay, Eric and Ross, thank you very much for that. I think that's helpful, and there may be more questions at the end of the meeting, so stay tuned. Thank you.
So, on the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the infrastructure committee report 10.2.2.1. Motion is the council direct staff to discuss the execution of the updating of the two report 20.005 at the next IC meeting. So we have a motion for that.
You missed 9.4, Marbury.
The action item.
Oh, I did. Apologies.
No problem.
Around.
Just so I had one item.
Action log, any comments, Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you very much. On page 60, the bottom one, it references the parking plan financial item. And if I can read from the second regular council meeting, the resolution passed by the council was to understand the financial dynamic of parking and fine revenue and all related expenses. Staff is requested to provide a breakdown of these items from 2020 to 2025 inclusive, and projected 26 figures, as well as yearly visitor count information is available. What we have seen offline is 24-25. So it strike this as being completed and ask that staff complete it.
Okay, any comments? Blackwell? No comments. Okay, Crystal. Okay, any other items? No. Okay, we'll move to the motion that staff direct, or that council direct staff to discuss the execution of the updating of the two report, and that's the 20.005 at the next IC meeting. You have a motion for that. Moved by Councilor Abbott, second. Councilor Broughton, discussion. Councilor Abbott, would you like to introduce that?
Sure. So as council remember, the infrastructure committee recommended that council approve a $20,000 budget to update the two report. And then that on the 4th of November regular council meeting, that was included in the budget, and the resolution read council approved the inclusion of $20,000 for updating the two report 2025. In the latest infrastructure committee meeting that we held last week, the committee sort of reconsidered this, not in whether it should or shouldn't go ahead, but what we were actually asking for, and did that wording really imply what we wanted to do. To cut a long story short, it was felt that the next steps are estimates of cost estimates, and updating the report didn't necessarily give us that, because the report did not have a good estimate. So we wanted to just define that a little better with the director of operations before he does anything at the next meeting. So that's basically the request.
Okay, so
We don't issue anything to the two now, because that we want to define the scope better.
okay, so staff will come to the next IC meeting. We'll have a discussion and flush that out.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of this motion? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, let's see.
Sorry, there were some minutes in there as well. So the one is draft, it'll come back later after approved, and the other one is for just to be added to the record.
Okay,
Received by council, is all I mean to say, I guess.
okay, next item is 10.3.1. The continuing on table items, that's on page 86. And Councilor McLaughlin, I'm going to refer to you to.
Thank you very much.
introduce that.
Let's start with the motion. That any materials not included in the published agenda package for a regular council meeting shall only be received for consideration upon a separate resolution of council at the time of the agenda adoption. And that in the absence of such a resolution, such materials should not form part of the meeting record or be considered by council. In the body of the communication, I've highlighted where this did occur. At the last council meeting by a councillor who did not take the opportunity to bring it to council's attention during the opportunity to expand the agenda, nor did they bring it to council at the time when the discussion was made on the CAO review handoff. Rather than that, they handed out the item, and quite frankly, that's simply a no-no.
Okay, so we have a motion for we'll break these into two motions. Motion for the first, Councillor McLaughlin moved that. Do we have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Councillor Abbott. Discussion will go around the table. Councillor Broughton.
I'm having, I was a bit confused when we were talking about on table items because with the motion made by the councillor who has brought on table items to virtually every meeting, so I was a bit surprised. My concern about the materials that I brought forward were actually information to assist in the discussion, and they were not an on-table item per se. They were not.
It said on-table report.
They were not requiring a decision or anything of that nature. So essentially, I was attempting to document what I was going to be saying and as a courtesy. But I understand the concern that the councillor has. I'm concerned though that's the first part of the motion, I guess. I think what happens is the agenda comes. Okay, fair comment in terms of bringing things up and notice of on table. I've attempted to do that this evening, and so we'll ensure that on table items are provided at the earliest possible time. It's challenging with agendas coming out on a Friday evening to have to respond to the multiple number of items on the agenda on a Monday, and therefore it requires that on table items do come to the meeting. So that's part one, right?
Yeah, we're just going motion by motion. This is the first motion on the table. Any other councillors wish to speak?
No, I think it speaks for itself.
Okay, I'll just make a comment. I think that's reasonable on table items, but just to give background, on table items generally come on table because they're of importance that council needs to address them. In order for them to be discussed, council has to. Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute recess. Okay. 2-minute recess, Ross. When you're available, sorry, come back and join us. Multitasking. Yeah, no problem.
I've got no water for you guys, sorry.
We're almost done.
Okay, on table items, just my understanding of them and Mr. Blackwell, you can weigh in if need be. On table item is something of importance that council needs to look at during that meeting, or the councillor feels that the council needs to look at it. So that item comes on table. Councillors have to weigh in and approve that be discussed. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would offer a little bit more detail. So I would say a defensible high water mark on this one would be that an issue for it to be introduced as an on-table item, it should be emergent and it should be time sensitive. And if it meets both of those tests, I think it's reasonable for council to consider whether or not it should be added to the agenda. But if it doesn't, then council should, and council's spoken about this, that if it doesn't meet those tests, then it should be placed on a future agenda.
Okay. Yeah, that helps. Okay, and then council votes on it and we decide whether that's going to be listed. Okay, I think we all have to adhere to that. I agree with it. I think that also goes for if someone decides to, read a prepared, statement
Yes.
and then ask that that be submitted into the record, I think that, should also, be voted on by council. I know we've, probably all, done this from time to time. Councillor McLaughlin, this is, I think appropriate because you've done a number of prepared speeches and asked that they'll be recorded in the record. So I think in the future, we should probably get council's approval on that as an on-table item. So any other comments? Yeah, Councillor McLaughlin.
On that point, I concur, Mayor Barry, and I haven't done one since you asked me not to. But I think if there is a point to be made, and everybody knows when the agenda date is, and they know what the cutoff is, they got something to say, put it forward, it's on the agenda. Council can vote then.
Yeah, and once again, emergent, time sensitive, so if there will be from time to time things that come after the agenda is published. Councillor Broughton, a second time, then we'll go around the table if there's any other comments, and we'll call a question.
Yes, we're fully aware of when the agenda is the deadline for the agenda. However, when the agenda comes out, typically there will be items that are raised on the agenda that council is not aware are going to be on the agenda until the agenda is published, at which point a response may be required. So that is what is generating some of the on tables is the, for example, this evening, there was a number of items which appeared on the agenda, which were then response was created to those.
Fair enough. Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, second motion on the table is that in the absence of such resolution, such materials shall not form part of the meeting record or be considered by council. I'm going to ask, before we call that motion, Councillor McLaughlin, can you please give us a background on that particular motion and your thought process behind that?
Using the example of last week, something was handed out.
Okay, anything else, Sam? Okay. Do we have a motion on this? Okay, moved by Councillor Abbott, second by Councillor Cunliffe. Mr. Blackwell, can you give us background? My concern would be, is this legal? When a matter gets brought before council, and if 3 or more council members vote that they don't want to hear that item, and then there is no record of that, I'm not sure that would be appropriate or legal if it was an emergent and time sensitive and perhaps an item that needed to be recorded, such as Botanic Creek, dangerous trees or whatever it may be. Is that legal to pass a motion like this? Mr. Blackwell?
I was just reading it. So it depends in what context it happens. So if somebody wants to add something to an agenda as a casual conversation in the absence of a vote, it's not going to be recorded. If somebody says, I would like to make the following motion that this be added or subtracted or amended, blah, 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 whether or not that's successful, so defeated or approved, that's going to be recorded. And the additions to whatever additions or subtractions are included in that. You include that full, don't you? The motion you didn't have what the components, the limits of it.
If I may, as long as, it was first and moved and seconded
Correct.
and voted.
Right.
Sometimes.
Okay, so if a on-table item is moved and seconded,
And voted on.
and then there's discussion, of course, you move it, you second or discussion, go around the table, that is recorded. So in fact, we can't make a material disappear, not be part of the record. Is that correct?
As long as it's voted on. There are occasions where it's either not seconded, or if it's moved and seconded but not voted on.
Okay, So is this resolution a moot point then? Because it has to be recorded. You can't not record things. Again, I'm just asking for clarity and then we're gonna go around the table.
So I would need to sort of sink my teeth into the pretty detail, but suffice to say that, and I say this with due respect, even though it may not sound like it, regardless of what council has as a resolution, we're required to statutory procedures. So we will, whatever we feel is appropriate to be recorded on the agenda will be on the, in the minutes, regardless of what resolutions council may choose to enact. I mean, let's just say you had some sort of wild council that came up with all kinds of resolutions to do who knows what. Could be all illegal, put a toll on Highway 1 staff, that's our resolution, it was passed. Well, staff isn't gonna do that, right? So just because there's a resolution doesn't mean staff have the legal authority to proceed with it. So with regard to this, to the extent that we have to ensure the integrity of the minutes, that's what takes precedent over anything else.
Okay, anyone wish to speak on this? Councilor Broughton.
Just picking up on the motion, was the matter which precipitated this motion. As the councillor tasked with collecting information from the rest of council for the CEO evaluation, I went back and listed all the different steps that had been involved in that, and wanted to provide that to council in order to inform the discussion. Whether I do that on paper or whether I say it in words, I think my attempt to put it on paper is, I'm a more visual person. There were 15 different dates that were listed there, and rather than talking at length, I thought it was useful to provide that information. So I guess I would be, I wasn't expecting that to be, part and parcel of the record. It was data that was provided to try to inform the debate. But I think I think we're much clearer.
Mayor Barry, we're spending
what we're trying to
on
do.
this, I withdraw the motion.
Okay, good enough, we'll move on. Next item is the Fire Smart initiatives, the motion of, there's two motions, so I'll go first, one by one. First motion is that council authorizes submission of the 2026 Community Resiliency Investment Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports application to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities for the funding of up to $150,000 for fire smart activities, emergency planning, and the development of a community wildfire resiliency plan. Do we have a motion for that? Moved by Councilor Broughton, seconded by Councilor Cunliffe. Discussion.
Sorry, I'm not motivating for or against this, and I'm happy if we call the question, but this is the kind of thing that should really have a report, a link to it, something that tells us what it's about. We can go read it up in advance.
Now, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you. So this is an emergent issue that came up this week. The funding envelope or deadline is fast approaching. There's nothing special here. Council's seen this before. We've already had a Fire Smart grant. This is just another, they require for the grant submission a council resolution. This should just be a simple, yes, give us money so we can continue our Fire Smart work. Doesn't need anything more than that because you already have the history from all the other Fire Smart activities.
Any other comments before I call the question? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. A second motion is that municipality will administer the investment from the Community Resiliency Investment Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports Program and commits to ensuring that all activities will be completed within 2 years of the funding approval date. So motion moved by Councilor Broughton, seconded by Councilor Cunliffe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, next is the correspondence. We'll pass it over to Councilor Broughton. If any council would like to pull any item.
Just like to, I think the items are on the record. Would just like to thank John Robb for his role in the, I'm sorry, I can't find the material here right now. Oh, here it is. Okay, Fisheries and Oceans letter that we received regarding the glass sponge reef. John played a really important role there, and thank you also to Councillor Abbott for his role in that. The other items are in the agenda and dealt with.
Okay, any other councillors? Councillor Abbott?
Just slightly further to that, thanks, Mike, thank you for that, Michael. That letter does not need to be addressed anymore. I've already relayed that to staff. We went and met with the DFO representatives on the beach. And verbally, they told us you can ignore the request, but it would just be good if staff just confirm back to them and say, as we were instructed, that you already had this discussion and you withdraw the request. That's all you need to do. I did send it by an email. Just in case there's any misunderstanding or anything.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, any new business? No, okay, we're going to move to public questions. And this is probably all of you, so thank you.
Thank you very kindly.
Sorry, Ross.
Just one moment, please.
We
Sorry,
have two
Councillor.
other items.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I would like to ask you very kindly,
Can we leave this question and then?
how safe I am in Lions Bay right now when my neighbor is cutting the trees on borderline, and also, let's say, 0.5 meter or 1 meter from my property line, which the roots of these huge trees are absolutely under my driveway. How safe I am at the present time? How safe I will be in 5 years? We are talking about subdivision, etc. But I think it's the basic question for many people, very basic question. Who can protect me from this? Is the municipality who is giving the permit to Mr. Śledzki is going to take responsibility? If anything happens, touch wood, who is the person here in this village who can protect me as a resident of 34 years, taxpayer, etc.? I like to know the question, and I would like to also ask how somebody can do aggressive work which can absolutely be dangerous for the neighbor next door. How this could happen, and if anyone can stop this kind of work, because I am extremely sad that I'm lonely in this, nobody is helping me. I feel vulnerable and very, very sad that I'm living in the community, which was beautiful, full of greenery, full of happiness. And now this issue, nobody can assure me that what is happening now on the slope, tons of trees, which are lying on the ground and having this heavy weight. How I read a lot that this is really impacting the slope. After this trees being removed from the slope, who is going to give any report? And also, according to the scientists, what I read, the mitigation is a huge issue here, which means the report is not necessarily going to show the truthful answer, because things might happen, like the scientists are saying, after 5-10 years even, when the tree will decay. That's is my worries, that first time in 30 years, Lions Bay allowed to have this on this scale subdivision. Never was done. Mr. Fred Bain, wonderful, notable man, was saying that how you can give the permission if the nature is dictating what is going on. Is big rain, is big snow, is terrible situation, and we have landslide. We are actually vulnerable so much. Everyone is saying it was slight on 2024, as I mentioned, you know all very well, 2018 and 1983, etc. is not the place which is safe. And actually, after this humongous way of clearing, how safe I am next door. This is really something which worries me. I can't sleep at night. I feel sad. I feel terrible. And I'm coming here I show all this evidence and scientific evidence. I talk to some of these people and I like to know who can protect me. And I asked the mayor, I asked Mr. Blackwell, and I asked Mr. Eric Villeneuve as well, this question. How you people can tell me that after all this huge work which is on the slope, is I am safe? Is there anybody who can say this? Probably not. And what could be done that my driveway is not going to be damaged by Mr. Śledzki, because he started already. He cut huge the trees on the entrance on my driveway. They are gone and the roots are gone. I was showing on photographs that he excavated all the roots. Means there is no root, no protection. And I feel abandoned and I feel terribly sad that this is happening in such beautiful village, which we cherish very much.
All right.
And please, Mayor, answer my question if you can.
Thank you very much. I fully appreciate your concern. As a council and a mayor, we depend on staff and the staff depends on professionals. So we've heard this many times this evening. It isn't the role of council to weigh in and interfere with staff. That's not our job. And in fact, we're legislatively not in a position to do that. But we certainly can listen to your concerns, and there will be public hearings as well for some of we've heard on some of the
Because
future
I did
meetings.
hear
But I'm
about-
gonna pass it over to the staff because they're in a much better position to comment on this, and would also encourage anyone in the gallery or anyone online. If you've got questions and they're operational and this type of nature, you need to go to our office and speak with staff, and they're the best trained and they're in a position and have the experience. So, Mr. Blackwell.
To whom precisely? To Mr. Blackwell or to whom I have to address this? That's what I like to ask.
I'm gonna hand it over to, because we have the one employee model, so council, when we have a concern, we speak with Mr. Blackwell.
Mhm.
I don't phone up individuals, I don't phone Eric, I don't phone others.
Understand.
That's always been an issue in the past. So single employee model, Mr. Blackwell, please answer that and
Sure.
give us some direction.
Okay, so,
Sorry, I come closer because my hearing is not the best and
sorry.
I could hear you slow speaking that I had gentle voice, but I can't hear everything. Sorry about that.
I
Okay.
can tell my kids I have a gentle voice. I think, yeah, they would.
Okay, sorry. Yes, please.
So anything that a municipality or local government does, it has to have the legal authority to do it. And the legal authority is given for whatever municipality chooses to do, that those authorities are established by provincial legislation. So if whatever powers the municipality wishes to have are not covered off in the legislation, then they are not permitted to exercise those powers. So when it comes to land clearing in this situation you're referring to, the municipality has no authority to regulate what a person does on their property. If it's.
Even if it's dangerous,
Even if it's.
even if it's dangerous for others, that's not
Yeah, I'm
necessary.
just gonna remind everyone, it's a 2-minute opportunity, and I know this is a very sensitive topic.
It is.
But allow Mr. Blackwell to finish, and then
sorry.
we'll allow a
Sorry,
question and
sorry.
then we'll move on. So thank you
Sorry
very
about
much.
that. Thank you. Thank you.
So, as I said, local government must have the legal authority to be able to regulate something on private property. We don't have any authorities that will legally allow us in a situation that you're referring to intervene in any way, shape, or form. There are tools available to municipalities to do that. Lions Bay doesn't have those, doesn't exercise those authorities. Examples. If the municipality could enact a land clearing policy or a bylaw that regulates how land clearing must happen. We could have a tree preservation bylaw that restricts or limits how many trees can be taken down, or under what circumstances they could be on private land I'm talking about, not public land. With that, usually with those, there's a replacement obligation for every tree you take down, you have to plant 2 new ones, sort of idea. We don't have that. We could have hazard area development permits. Hazardous area development permits. Which would regulate what must occur in order to do anything on lands that are designated as hazard lands. Hazards could be slope failure, it could be flooding, it could be any wildfire, it could be all kinds of things. We don't have that. So all of the tools that municipality could have to regulate big land clearing exercises, which from what I've been able to observe, don't happen very often. But we don't have the tools. We could have the tools, but we don't. So with regard to this situation, there's no permitting process, there's no oversight. So if somebody does something that impacts a neighbor, whether they break their glass, whether they cut down a tree and it falls on their property, whatever the situation is, then that's a civil action between two neighbors. So if this individual that you're referring to does something that you feel unfairly impacts you, then you can bring an action against whatever individual, this individual in this case.
But I can't come to you and ask you for help, no, because there is no
We don't have
authority. Yeah, that's really, the law should be changed in this direction that, there is some power from municipality, otherwise it's impossible to.
Mr. Blackwell, just weighing in on
Thank
that, the provincial advisor, when they were, helping the village out in the first 5 months, had said that our bylaws and legislation was, vastly outdated or very much outdated. They suggested that we do a overhaul. If we were to upgrade those bylaws, would that help situations, like we come up against where you say you don't have the tools? Would that provide staff with the tools and the village with the tools if we were to adhere to those provincial recommendations?
That's a great question. Sort of, and why I say sort of is, assuming that a new OCP is prepared, I would also assume, because it's basic and it's logical, that through that process, development permit areas would be established for things like environmental sensitive, ESAs, environmentally sensitive areas, hazard areas, where there would be development permit areas associated with that work. That would go a long way to deal with a myriad of issues. But I would go further and say that it wouldn't address gaps that currently exist in the bylaw regime that we have now. The issue is not that our bylaws are old with regard to land clearing, for instance, it's that we don't have a bylaw. So if council felt that they wanted to create a tree bylaw or a land clearing bylaw, etc., then that would have to be direction to staff through council strategic planning process so that we can map out all of the work and then we could proceed with that. Should Lions Bay, in my opinion, seriously consider things like land clearing bylaws and so forth? I would say absolutely. It's remarkable there isn't one in place for this reason.
Yeah.
And a land clearing bylaw, by the way, doesn't say no one can clear their land. What it says is if somebody wants to clear their land, here are the steps that must be followed. And these steps are to ensure public safety and whatever else.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, let's say is the logic is that if you give the permit, means you take the responsibility or not, in this sense, because the municipality is giving the permit or giving the temporary whatever permit, which means if the person is not doing what should be doing and is affecting directly me, which is it does, then I believe the logic is and the answer is the municipality is the one who should take care, not somebody who didn't give the permit or who does stuff on its own. What is your position on this?
Okay, last opportunity to speak, Mr. Blackwell, and then we've got to move on and give
Thank you.
others an opportunity.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So with the permitting process, it would be the local government that is responsible for administering it and ensuring compliance with the permit. If an applicant doesn't comply with the permit, usually there are, what's the word I'm looking for? I think there are actions that can be taken to bring it into compliance, and there's quite a range of actions that I won't get into, but that's typically how it goes.
Okay, I
Okay,
thank you, Mayor, so
Thank you
much,
very
and
much.
thank you, Mr. Backwell, and thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry to ask you several questions, but this is my everyday life.
Yeah.
And it's affecting and my future here. And that's how I allow myself to ask you these questions, to have the answers. And thank you so much for that.
we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
We missed two items earlier on,
sorry,
during the,
because we're eliminated if you're referring to,
no, the continuing, during the on-table items. is that-
oh, yeah.
There was 10.3.2, which was added to the agenda.
Yeah, those are
Ten
the
point three
additions.
point three, both of which were time-sensitive items.
Okay,
They were distributed to all council and staff earlier this afternoon, but I have copies here.
okay, if you can walk us through 10.3.2 park
I think-
opening.
I think probably the fastest way is simply for me to read it,
Okay,
and then it'll be clear. This one is the official opening of the revitalized Lions Bay Beach Park. Whereas the long anticipated Lions Bay Beach Park revitalization has been a source of excitement and pride for the community, the completion of the project will be a highlight for the village and will provide an ongoing strong sense of community, pride, and ongoing enjoyment for all residents of the community. So the motion is that council confirms that the official opening of the revitalized Lions Bay Beach Park will take place at the Canada Day celebration on July the 1st. Further, that staff assist the Lions Bay Events Committee to create an opening celebration. It should be and not and. And number 3, that council authorizes up to $2,000 to supplement planned Canada Day celebrations.
okay.
So I would make that motion.
Okay, I'll break that into two, 1 and 2 first, and then number 3. First two motions, we have a motion, do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Cunliffe, any discussion?
Which is the first one?
Okay, all in favor?
So we just confirm what the first one
The
was?
first two,
First
We're doing
two
the
are
first
July
The
1st,
date and
July 1st for the celebration. And work with the Lions Bay Events Committee.
Okay, sure,
okay, all in favor?
yes.
Opposed, motion carried. Third is the council authorize up to 2,000 to supplement planned Canada Day celebrations. Councillor Broughton has moved that, do we have a second? Do we have a second? Okay, I'll second that. Discussion. Councillor Broughton, you put the motion forward.
It's an arbitrary figure, but I'm just looking to provide funding to the events, to assist the events committee in making this a fulsome opening. Could be 1,000, could be 2,000. I'm not sure exactly what the best right figure is, maybe I've said up to 2,000.
Yeah, Councillor Cunliffe.
I would like to actually ask if we could rescind that motion and bring it back to a future, like next meeting, to put a little more thought into. $2,000 is a significant amount of money when we've already given the grant for the year, so. I'd like to wrap my head around how this would look, what this would be used for, and what an actual figure would be, not kind of carte blanche. So,
I
Councillor
totally agree that it's not as time sensitive as the first part.
Okay, so Councillor Broughton
I'll
rescinds that.
just withdraw the second.
Okay,
thank you.
next motion on the table is the watercraft storage 10.3.3. Councillor Broughton.
Right, again, this became aware of this on Friday and contacted the CAO and received more information on Monday, so drafted a resolution to bring on table tonight. The background here is whereas watercraft storage was identified as a high priority of any beach park revitalization in the Beach Park Revitalization Survey, which was used as a key driver to support the Beach Park Revitalization Grant and assisted us in being successful there. Secondly, watercraft storage is the key element of the scope of the trilateral funding successful grant for the Beach Park Revitalization. Watercraft storage is a highly valued asset to many residents of Lions Bay. And that watercraft of all forms are a highly used means of access to the Howe Sound marine environment. The background here is that currently there is no plan to provide watercraft storage. And my understanding, the council did withdraw this from the scope of the architect. And my understanding was not withdrawn from the scope of the beach park. I was of the understanding that the later, once the substantial completion that was in place, that we would review where the watercraft storage would be placed, and how it would be configured in replacing it basically in the same location. So at the beach park is now substantially complete. It was anticipated it would be substantially complete before this, giving us more time to have watercraft storage in place for the summer. But at this point, there is none. And so my motion is that staff replace the watercraft storage for various lengths of kayaks and paddle boards in numbers to exceed the number of those currently that were previously available. Secondly, that staff place the watercraft storage area in one or more sites in the northwest corner of the Lions Bay Beach Park. That is where they were, or in proximity to, and that staff arrange and execute the construction of watercraft storage racks for occupancy by June 1st, 2026. Like to move those motions first and then can speak to them.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Cunliffe, discussion. I think we've, Councillor Broughton, you've given a good overview.
Yeah.
Any comments by the other, well, why don't we go to Mr. Blackwell since there's no hands up, and then we'll go to the councillors.
I did suggest there's many motions here. Are we breaking them up?
Break them down? Sure.
Yeah, we can break them down. Give us the first
That'd
motion.
be fine, Matt, Barry, break it down. Go
Yeah,
number
definitely.
one.
Councillor
And then Mr.
Broughton.
Rockwell.
Okay, number one would be to replace the watercraft storage
Okay,
of kayaks and paddles of various
Okay.
lengths.
second by Councillor Cunliffe. Okay, discussion. We'll go
So
to
I-
Mr. Blackwell. He's got his hand up and he's gonna give us an overview.
So I was trying to go back to this issue to break them up. None of these stand on their own. They're one motion. How can you break them up? You can't do part of them. You can't do 1 and 3 and not 2. I mean,
Two is location, I guess.
they're all one motion. This is really
Yeah.
one motion.
I'm fine with the own motion.
One it is.
Okay, let's do one. Who would like to speak to
Mr.
it?
Blackwell.
Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you. So earlier today, I don't know if anyone had a chance to read the email. This came across my desk. I expressed a number of concerns about this. So a little bit more background. There was initially a desire to replace the kayak racks in the existing location. That was initially scoped into the contract for the contractor. During the site analysis, they said that the slope is hazardous, and the only way the architect would sign off on it is if it was constructed properly. Euro House said to construct it as the architect would like to ensure public safety. It would add $300,000 to the budget, and council at that time said, let's remove it from the scope, and when the park is done, we will reassess the what and the where and the how and so forth. So we are approaching the completion of the park, and I can tell you that there is that the slope is as steep as it ever was. It is unsafe. There's no way to make it safe. It is a ticking time bomb of liability. The professionals want nothing to do with it. If it's to be constructed, you have to cut a check for about somewhere up to as much as $300,000 to prepare it properly. You will have to rip out a lot of the landscaping work that's been done in order to get the machines in there to build all of this stuff. So you can throw in another, pick around a number $75,000, $100,000 to repair all of the stuff that has to get pulled out.
Would the park be closed at this time?
It would have to be closed during the construction. So the northwest corner, and based on sort of the configuration of the new play, with the lower playground and so forth, it's chewed up a lot of the space that would have otherwise been available. I would suggest, as I did in my email, that before council does anything, hit the pause button, look at this with sober eyes, and look at it objectively and figure out the best location to put the storage if you feel that storage is required. You will recall staff recommended that the south boundary is far better. It's far cheaper to construct there, that the topography is far more conducive. There's sort of no extra construction requirements, no special retaining elements, no handrails, no nothing. It's a gentle enough slope that would make it easy to put them in that location, which council rejected at the time. That would be the only spot that it could go in at this point.
Can we do a site visit, just so the council has a better understanding?
That was my recommendation, is that council does a site visit. Even if, so to replace the kayak racks, we had to take the kayak racks down anyway because they were rotting and falling down. So they were a hazard. So they had to be taken away anyway. So the choice is what Carl was looking at the day was using marine grade aluminum so that they would last forever, et cetera, et cetera. That's really expensive. So the next option is wood. But in order to do all this, you've got to wait for the grass to grow in and establish itself before any of this sort of work happens.
Councilor Brown, would you defer these resolutions until we get to have a site visit? Maybe that would give council an opportunity to have a better understanding.
I think it's important for the community to understand that there will be watercraft storage. So I'm very concerned that council directs staff to seek solution to this matter. I recognize these slope, the racks have been there for 40 to 50 years. And, you know, I just believe that there's probably a whole series of problems that we can identify. And there's probably 2 or 3 solutions that we could focus on. So,
Okay, I don't have the report in front of me because I didn't receive it by email this afternoon, but did you want to have staff look into the options? Is that what you're proposing here?
well,
Perhaps.
I think an on-site would be very, very useful. And, but I'm also very concerned about the time element.
Okay.
I believe that we need to have this resource in place for summer 2026. And I believe that the residents are expecting that.
Mhm.
And I don't think that residents understand that currently that this does not exist.
Councilor Cunliffe and Councilor McLaughlin and Councilor Abbott.
I would prefer a site visit and a fulsome understanding before we pass the resolution to direct staff to investigate, because the solution before the suggested location was dragging every kayak and every paddleboard directly across the swimming area and across the beach, which is not conducive to an enjoyable day at the beach for anybody. So I wouldn't want to see any time put back into that solution. I would prefer a site visit where we could then have some brainstorming before we direct staff to do anything. And our residents have managed without a beach all winter long, of which many people use it year round. If the unfortunate scenario is that it's going to be a delay in order to get watercraft racks put in place, but it would be very disappointing for all of the other residents and visitors to delay the opening of the beach park merely for some watercraft racks at this point. I think people are ready to be down at the beach like last weekend. So I don't want to make a decision on this night.
All right, thank you. Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you very much. I did a site visit there this morning. I can confirm exactly what the CAO has said. There are benches and flat, other community spaces in place. What is left is a 45-degree slope, which implies, considering as Councilor Breton says, we want more units there, means you have to go higher, which means you have racks that go higher and higher, which means need stairs, ladders, and I would not want to be at the bottom of that while somebody's humping it off the top. That's just a personal view. So as to the site inspection, I've seen it. Key to my piece here is what Mr. Blackwell has said. Council's already made this decision. We're at the end here. This is a problem created by this council. Didn't see it coming. I'll go that far. Don't know what naive expectation is that we're going to blow apart the beach and delay it further so that we can do consider using Mr. Blackwell's number, a north of $300,000 project at the same time as closing the beach. My view on this is a 2026 council decision.
Okay, Councilor Abbott?
So this is the very reason we should never have taken things out of that scope to start with. There was 3 key scopes that we were supposed to give for beach park. There was a washroom, there was the kayak racks, and there was the new playscapes. And we were meant to manage to that budget, and we should, when we agreed, well, not all of us agreed, but when it was taken out of the budget, I don't think the expectation was that the existing playscapes were necessarily going to be taken down. Understand there could be some difficult landscaping, but I mean, I didn't realize the existing ones were actually going to be taken down. Maybe that wasn't the case, but so residents absolutely are going to be expected to have kayak racks. This is a big decision. We certainly can make it tonight. I think it needs to go back to the budget cycle. I think maybe there's something else in the budget that has to get taken away to do this. We needed to keep the entire project as one entity, then we shouldn't have had this issue. I also failed to understand is when we got the proposals from the contractors, and they had kayak racks in there, and then we objected to the location. We needed to have worked with it then. And if that's what it turned out to be, it should have been in the budget. And whatever cost we'd spent on it, and even if there was a budget overrun, at least we were getting 73 cents on the dollar back and only paying 27 cents. And now I assume it's going to be 100% taxpayer funded. Assuming we could not add anything, even if there was budget left, we couldn't add anything because we've declared we substantially complete. And I'm assuming this was not a punch list item, will that be correct?
Okay,
It was not a punch list item.
okay,
All right, so.
good enough.
Yeah.
I'll just respond to Councilor McLaughlin's response. I think we've got to be pretty pleased that this park's actually going to get completed on this council's watch. So I think it's not all negative, all doom and gloom. But this kayak rack and supboard rack is important, and we need to find a resolution for this. So I would, my suggestion would be table this, do a site visit. You've had a site visit. The rest of council hasn't had that site visit or that opportunity. I think a site visit and then come back and revisit this. And as Councilor Abbott said, this is going to take a little thought. So that'd be my recommendation. But
A suggestion to council. What I would share with you is that it's important, if you're gonna do a site visit, everybody should be there, because what won't be helpful is for some members of council to hear technical information about what is doable, what is not doable, and how much this costs and how much that costs, and some members of council don't hear that same information. So it'd be important that everyone hears the same information so that you are able to make decision with the same weight. The second piece was
okay, all in favor, Councilor Brown, you put the motions on the table. Would you?
I think we should table it and have a site meeting
Okay,
I think.
All in favor of table?
Versus,
okay, carried. Okay, with that, well, that concludes, actually, we will go back to public participation. Apologies for missing those on table items. And we were, fortunate enough to have one speaker. Anyone else, and please take the podium. Thank you. So generally, just, tonight was a little bit, out of the ordinary because we had a topic that I know there's a lot of interest throughout the village. Normally what we do is 2 minutes per speaker and we go maximum 5 speakers. So thank you very much for allowing us to go over time on this.
Yeah, thank you. Does the public get a chance to have a look at that subdivision application?
Mr. Blackwell.
Yeah, there's a process. It's through the freedom of information process. So the person has to make a request, and staff will review the request and provide redacted information.
Okay.
And then you can also have a look at that checklist that goes with that application.
Let me help you out here. You can put a freedom information request and list all the items you want to see.
Okay.
You will get what you list, nothing more, nothing less. So that's the process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else in the gallery before we go online? Please take the podium. Thank you.
I'm Deirdre Dane. I got a couple comments. One is when a resident, like takes the amount of trees that have come down at Shretsky's, property, is there any, requirements to follow up with that? Cause he's, sort of violated the, bird-friendly nesting season. Is there any consequences for that, or because it's private property, no?
Mr. Blackwell.
The short answer is no.
It's too bad.
Sorry,
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
there are other regulations. The village's bird-friendly policies do not go to private land. There are other regulations that people have to comply with outside of the village, that require that you do not kill birds. And you can find those by going through, look at the rap line sort of process, you'll see.
The other thing, I feel rather astounded, I guess, that with the subdivision policy, that there's no requirement at all, it sounds like, that a geotech procedure be run to make sure, like, to me, it's putting the cart before the horse. That you don't even check to make sure that you take all these trees down, that it might be a risk to the village and other residents.
Mr. Blackwell.
So again, as I said, separate the two issues. Subdivision application's got nothing to do with what he's doing in land clearing, separate things. Whether or not he has a subdivision application has no bearing on whether he goes onto his property and cuts down trees. He's free to cut down trees on his own property, as is anybody.
Yeah, but when there's such a risk to it,
We have no, and so as I explained earlier, we do not have any regulations that would allow us to intervene at all with that. Now, as I explained earlier, let me just touch on something you said, and then I'll go back into this. With regard to the geotechnical concerns through the subdivision, which is what you were alluding to.
Yeah.
There are requirements through the PLR in line for every property in Lions Bay that chooses to make a subdivision application. Proving geotechnical viability is one of those considerations. It is one of those requirements. They can't do that, that's where things stop right there. There's other things, but that's one of them. With regard to vegetation removal, whether it's a shrub, a tree, it's green on private property, we have no regulations. The municipality could have regulations. And those regulations include things like land clearing bylaws that prescribe the hows, the whys, the wherefores around land clearing. We don't have one bylaw like that. There could be a development permit application designation, a hazard area development permit regime. that would provide a municipality, Lions Bay, with some scope to manage land use. We don't have those. There could be tree cutting bylaws. I call them tree cutting. They're just called tree bylaws that we have a tree bylaw that deals with cutting of trees on public land. It doesn't apply to private land. But it is possible to have a tree bylaw that regulates tree removal on private land as well. A lot of jurisdictions do, I believe. West Van does, District of North Van does. It's not uncommon, and there's different approaches. Sometimes there's, for every tree you take down of a certain size, you have to replace with whatever. There's replacement provisions. We don't have that either. So we don't have control over what people do on their land. Should we? Yes. Can we? Yes, but we don't.
It just seems like after Batani, what happened there, 2 people lost their lives. And it seems to me, I don't know a lot about it, but as far as Randall Creek is concerned, it seems like the potential for a landslide is much greater.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So I can't speculate on what may or may not be. I can't speculate whether they are the same. I can't speculate what the cause was for one and whether the same conditions exist for the other. Can't speculate. But whether or not that's the case, we have to have legal authority to do whatever we choose to do. We can't just go on people's property because we don't like what they're doing and say, oh, wait, stop that. We have to have, we're governed by laws. And so we have to have a legal authority and a bylaw regime that will give us the authority to effect those interventions. We don't have those. Can we? As I said, yes, but we don't.
A long process to get that.
Well, the answer is it's as long as a piece of string. So it's as long as it takes to, so it can go fairly quickly, but there's lots of things that can slow it down.
Okay, anyone else in the gallery before we go online? No, anyone online?
Yes, Tara Leger.
Okay, Tara?
Hi, my question is regarding the $3,000 that is unaccounted for this jetty that, not the jetty, the jetty wasn't included as well, but the kayak rack. That's not an insignificant amount. And this issue, the playground, Lions Bay Beach Park and Playground Revitalization Project has spanned not one council term, like the entirety of your council term, but it also is been grandfathered from the previous council term, of which 3 of you were on that previous council. So you know this issue, and we've been discussing this new the beach park for 2 council terms. It's consumed this whole community. We're thrilled that it's coming about, but to get back to the issue, $300,000 missing is not an insignificant amount. So I would like to see a motion on the table from council regarding an internal audit and an investigation on how this very important, significant piece of the scope of the project is now missing. So this has been in committee. You called a community committee together. Council has had council members have been in charge of this committee and on this committee. It's been overseen by council. It has consumed council time and staff time for multiple years. So costs add up. On top of, how does this important piece just go missing in action from an actual deliverable project? So the reduction in scope clearly was never approved, and to have a project delivered that has been funded. I mean, a grant application was submitted, and I do believe that the kayaks were initially part of this grant that was submitted. There needs to be an investigation on this. This is not an insignificant amount of money. This is not an insignificant scope of the project that is not deliverable. And somebody for certain is responsible for this. And is this an insurable error under errors and admissions? Or is this somebody who is...
Okay, so Mara, I'm gonna cut you off there because I think you're weighing into an area that's perhaps making some accusations. So I'm gonna cut you off there. Mr. Blackwell or Councillor Broughton, I saw you had your hands up.
Yeah, I think, just to be clear, that I don't think there's money missing. I don't think the $300,000 is missing. I think, there was a scope change, we discussed that. However, there clearly was an expectation that there'd be watercraft storage. And, I think we're on the road to attempting to resolve that. I feel very, very disappointed that, regardless of the fact that I've placed the beach park on each agenda since and it's been removed from the agenda since last July. It's unfortunate that council did not discuss beach park revitalization on an ongoing basis and have dealt with this much, much earlier.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, anything to add before we move on?
Only that council resolved at the time to remove it from the scope. I can't say anything else. So that's done. It was removed as council wished. And the intention was when the park was done, that matter would be re-examined. Everything is happening as it was supposed to. I don't know what more I can tell you. I mean, the council decided to hand it off to staff with those marching orders.
So I have a follow-up question then. Can I have?
Okay, one follow-up
Yeah,
question.
so
then we
if
can
it
move
was
on.
removed if it was removed from the original scope of the project by vote by council at the council table, this is not a surprise to council then. This is just a surprise to the community. Is the community still on the hook for that deliverable per the grant that we received? Because we wrote a grant way back when, and I believe that the kayak rack was part of that grant. So do we as a community, the good citizens and taxpayers of Alliance Bay, have to still deliver a kayak rack as part of our grant deliverable?
Mr. Blackwell.
Typically with granting agencies, there's flexibility that's built into these things when there are unforeseen circumstances. There are discussions and things are, scope is, with funders is modified as necessary. I have no reason to think that this would be problematic at all at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Tamara and Councillor Abbott. Before we move on to the next question.
Yeah, I think council needs to see a detailed breakdown of the project, where it's at. What the grant authority, and I hope that we can get that in the next budgets. This budget review we're gonna do, maybe a fly resolution, the council gets a full, prior to doing this visit, or at the time of this visit, gets a full breakdown of the cost of the beach park project, including stuff that was removed and what the plan is.
Okay, is that a motion? I would encourage us to do the site visit as early as possible. So in whatever order, Mr. Blackwell.
So what I would recommend is you complete the project, you get all the invoices in, because you won't have a full accounting yet. The numbers are the numbers. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know what council expects, quite frankly. We know what the scope was. We've delivered it. Right now, we're under budget. I mean, I'm baffled by what I'm hearing here. But nonetheless, if you want to see a full cost accounting, and you want staff to spend all that time investing in breaking out every line item, once we have all the receipts in, probably closer to July, I guess staff can do that.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Abbott.
You shouldn't need all the receipts in to forecast the project. You should know now exactly where it's going to end. You know what you've committed to. You don't have to actually write the check first. If we've been asked to make a decision around $300,000, and now we heard maybe there's money left in the budget, there's under budget, can we still access that? Because there's.
Mr. Blackwell, and then
I
I'm
would
gonna
like
ask
to
for
I would like
Councillor
to
Abbott to put a
entertain-
motion on the table. Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you. I prefer not to have to debate this issue with council. I mean, I just want to be able to report on this and not defend everything that we're doing. So yes, things keep changing. We're now having to look at constructing a fence on the north property line. The quote so far that I don't want to specify is a lot of money. We got to figure, rather than looking at that ratty fence, do we leave the ratty fence or do we fix the fence? This is not accounted for in the scope. There are a number of little things that we keep uncovering that we have to spend money on. So with respect, Councillor Rabbit, there are lots of moving pieces, lots of details that we have to account for, and we won't know those costs until we're done, and we're not quite there. It's devil's in the details at this point.
With respect, CEO, you're asking us for to approve additional budget. We'd like to understand.
I'm not asking for additional budget, man.
Okay, we're gonna get back to the questions, unless, there's a motion on the table. Back to the questions? Okay, next. Yes, none? Okay, motion to move back into close. We've got an item that we have to, cover and close, so, do we have a motion moved by Councilor McLaughlin? Second, Councilor Cunliffe, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much to the